Are you trying to figure out how to set up your art fair booth on a budget? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. I'm a full-time artist. I've been selling my work at art fairs and craft fairs all around the Midwest for the last 10 years. And I'm going to show you my very best tips of exactly how to set up your art fair booth. And this is great for beginners. So if you've never set up an art fair booth before, I'm going to explain to you every step of the process, everything that you need to know to be able to do this successfully. I'm going to show you the very cheapest tent that I found to set up a booth with, the very cheapest sidewalls. I'm also going to discuss tent weight bags, print bins, what credit card processor to use, chairs, everything. So let's go. Specifically, everything I'm going to discuss in this video pertains to outdoor art fair booth setup ideas, not indoor booths, but you could potentially use some of these things for indoor booths depending on the location of the indoor art fair. But for outdoor booths, the main thing that you need is a tent and weights. Now the tent is really important because this is protecting your art from all of the elements because there is rain, wind, sun, dust. Sometimes people are blowing bubbles, all sorts of different things at these events, smoking. And so you have to think about something that's going to protect your work from all of the elements and things that people might, throw out. I've actually had people throw water bottles at the side of my art fair booth. So yeah, you need something that's tough and durable and that can really be put through the paces when it comes to protecting your work. And now the very best tent you can buy is a Flourish trim line, but these tents cost $2,000. And this is what I would actually suggest buying. But if you can't afford that, and this video is about setting up an art fair booth on a budget, I have a tent that I've linked in the description, and everything I'm discussing in this video will be linked in the description. But this tent is great. It's an off-brand Easy Up, but it is watertight, relatively, as good as Easy Ups go. And it's a lot less expensive than the more expensive watertight Easy Ups, because those can run $1,500 or so if you want it to be completely watertight. This tent is only $250, so it is a huge savings, and it's worked well for me. I haven't had any issues with it, but I would like to clarify that I don't use it for the events where I'm bringing originals and things like that, because I just don't trust an Easy Up to be watertight. And I have one of the Flourish trimline tents, so I use that the majority of the time. What I use an Easy Up for is when I'm doing a local event that's only for one day and I need to be able to set up in just like an hour or so, then it's great because it's quicker to set up than the Flourish trimline tent is. And especially if there's not going to be bad weather, I can just put it up real quick, hang up my stuff, and it's easier to take down as well. Now, if you're really trying to save money and you don't care if your tent is watertight, then you can buy an Easy Up tent at any discount store like Big Lots or Walmart, and sometimes you can get them for around $100 if you shop a sale. I've also linked in the description my favorite weight bags. There's lots of weight bags that are available that you can get on Amazon. They're super affordable, but these ones I've used for over 10 years and they've held up for hundreds of art fairs. So I think that they're very durable, and I fill them with gravel that I got from Lowe's. But if you're trying to save a few bucks, you could always just go out to a lake or maybe a gravel road and fill them with sand or gravel from those locations, and that would be free. Another idea is that if you have weights around at home, just the weights that you use for lifting weights, whether they're the flat weights that go like on a bench press or just the dumbbells, you could take those and tie those with rope to the poles of your art fair booth. The main idea here though is that you want to make sure that you have at least 25 pounds on each leg of your tent. So this means that you need 100 pounds or more weighting down your tent. And the reason I say this is that it never fails. I'll go to an art event and someone will have an Easy Up and they won't have it weighted down properly. And then there will be winds, like let's say 20 or 30 mile-an-hour winds. And then they will be standing there the entire time trying to hold the tent down, because even though they have a small amount of weight on there, the thing starts lifting up like it's going to fly away. Or if they're really inexperienced, they have no weight on it, and then the thing just totally flies off and hits somebody else's booth and wrecks everybody's stuff. I've seen this happen multiple times. And so usually if I'm near somebody like that, I go over and tell them that they need to put weight on their tent. And usually they get unhappy with my intrusion into their life, but I don't want my stuff to get ruined, honestly. And so this was where it comes to being a good art booth neighbor, right? So even if you don't care about your stuff getting ruined because your art booth flies away in the wind, think about other people that could be injured or their stuff damaged and weight down your tent. If you're a person who makes paintings or drawings, basically two-dimensional art, then you're going to need something to hang your art on the walls of your booth from. Mesh panel walls from Flourish are are the very best option for this, but unfortunately they run $850. Now I gotta tell you, they are worth every penny. I use these on my Easy Up tent and my Flourish Trimline tent, but the thing is that the cost barrier is so high to get into, especially if you're just starting out at art fairs. So instead of doing that, there is an amazing product on Amazon. It's super affordable. It's like 40 bucks a wall, which is so cheap. And it's the same mesh panel material. They call them mesh tarps. They're linked in the description, and you can basically bungee ball them all around the top of the booth and along the side poles, very similarly to the way that the mesh panel walls from Flourish attach. So if you're looking for a very affordable way to have a professional looking wall on your booth, then definitely check those out. But one thing to keep in mind is that if there's a lot of wind, your art is probably going to swing on them a little bit. It's not going to be completely stretched tight like the mesh panel walls that you pay $850 for. But if you are going into lower wind situations, then these walls are definitely a good option. The main thing that you do not want to do is take easels out into the wind, try to set them up around your booth. It never fails. I see somebody who is a beginner artist doing this, and their easels end up falling and crashing to the ground. Their paintings get messed up. It distracts the customers from the other booths at the art event, and everybody's kind of looking over there like, is your stuff okay? What all did you ruin? That kind of thing. And so it just kind of creates a bad vibe for the event. So it's again thinking about being a good booth neighbor. Even if you don't care about your stuff, other people are trying to sell stuff at the event too. And if you're creating a racket by destroying your stuff and letting it just like bounce around everywhere from the wind, that makes all of our experience negative, and our customers aren't having as good of a time because they're wondering what's going on over at your booth. And so be a good neighbor and don't bring stuff that's going to fall over and crash around and make a racket in the wind. If you're doing things like farmers markets or local art and craft events that don't have specific guidelines about hanging only original work on your walls, then one thing to consider is just putting your work up on banners. Basically, you have a banner printed that's 10 foot long by like 6 foot or 4 foot high, and then you string that along the outsides of your booth, right? And then you have like print racks underneath it. So then you're not selling anything on the walls, you're just selling prints. And I used to do this when I would do art fairs or events that would be like a 4-hour vending time. And then I would just need to set up in like 45 minutes or less because I wouldn't have time to hang everything on the walls and do all of that. Normally it takes a couple hours to set up an art fair booth. And even if you're doing it with an Easy Up. Now, if you're setting up with a trim line, sometimes it takes me 4 hours to set up my booth. So if the event is only running for 4 hours and you only get like 1 hour to set up, then what are you going to do, right? And so that's why I have the banner booth set up with the Easy Up, because I can set that up really quick. And oftentimes at the local art events, I don't sell originals off the walls anyway. People just want to buy my prints. And so this way I'm not having to do the extra effort of hanging the work and risking my work and the weather and all of that. And I'm just going to be selling what I would sell anyway. And so something to definitely keep in mind. But again, you have to make sure that the event will allow you to do that, because a lot of art fairs would really frown upon a booth that was set up with just banners on the wall. So make sure to check out the rules before you decide to go with this type of booth setup. Now, if you're a 3D artist, like let's say you are a sculptor or a jewelry maker, you're going to need something to display your artwork on, like pedestals or jewelry stands and things like that. I'm a 2D artist, so I don't have a lot of experience with that. You probably have already seen other artists doing things like setting up tables and putting a cover over them. And Amazon has lots of different folding tables available and covers that work really well for those. And I've linked them in the description, the ones that I've used. Shifting back to 2D artists, if you are a painter or make drawings or something like that, you're likely going to be wanting to sell art prints. And so you will need a way to display the art prints. And one of the biggest mistakes I've seen people do is just have art prints in a sleeve that's like all floppy and not have a backing board in there or anything. And they just kind of have them sitting on a table and people are kind of looking through and winds blowing the stuff around, they're getting wrinkled up. This is definitely what not to do. I know that it might save you a few bucks, you think in your mind to do that, but you're going to be ruining your work. And if your work's all wrinkled up and stuff, people aren't going to want to buy it, and you're not going to be able to charge as much for it. The best thing to do is get a print rack for your prints. Just like art fair tents, there's a lot of different ranges of print racks available. They're the more expensive ones for around $250 from Pro Panels. They are amazing print racks. These are what I use all the time at the art fairs. But if you don't have the money to spend that much on a print rack, you can get one for about 50 bucks on Amazon. It's a metal print rack and it has a cloth place for all the prints to sit in there. They work well. I used to use those during the first 5 years that I did art fairs, but eventually I did upgrade to the better print racks because they look better and they are a little bit more functional for what I'm trying to sell at the art fairs, because I'm selling a lot of prints in the print bins. And the print racks that are smaller that you get on Amazon for 50 bucks, that are linked in the description like everything else I've been discussing in the video. But those print racks, they just don't hold as much art. Nonetheless, they will work really well. And if you're on a budget, I would go with a more affordable print rack and then upgrade to one of the better ones later if you find that those print racks aren't working as well for you, or you're not fitting as much print inventory in them as you need to. Also, don't forget to take a chair to sit in. Now, you can use a lawn chair that you already have from home, but what I found is a director's chair works best because you are sitting up higher. It's like a bar height level chair if you're unfamiliar with what a tall director's chair is. But basically, you're sitting up higher at eye level with the customers, so you don't always have to get up to talk to them and look at them straight in the eyes. And it's better when you're trying to connect with people and make sales if you are looking at them right in the eyes rather than looking at them from sitting lower to the ground like a regular lawn chair would. But if you are trying to save a few bucks, just bring the lawn chair you have from home for the first few shows until you can invest in a $50 or $75 director's chair. It's also important to be able to process credit cards when you're doing art fairs. If you haven't thought about a credit card processor, I would seriously suggest Square. I've used Square for years. You can use Square to accept payments using your phone. At this point, I think you can do it through most phones without even having any attachments. You can always just type in the numbers if you need to, but I think a lot of them allow you to basically use the Bluetooth on your phone to tap to pay with a customer's card that does tapping. But there's also different devices that you can plug into your phone that they send you for free or for very low cost. Now, if you want to upgrade to something better, what I do is I have an iPad stand and I think it works really well. It's very convenient for me. I have tendonitis in all of my joints in my upper extremities. If you've watched any of my previous videos, you've heard me talk about that because I have a genetic connective tissue disorder. So for me to be holding up my phone constantly and checking people out gets painful and really annoying after a while, and I'm running lots of sales of these things. So for me, having the actual iPad where I can just easily check people out and I can make change and everything is good. But you don't need that, and processing credit cards on your phone is a very viable option. I see lots of other artists doing it, and that's exactly how I processed cards and accepted payments for the first couple of years when I was doing art fairs as well. If you'd like to learn the top 5 things I wish I knew when I first started doing art fairs, watch this video. All right, thank you so much for watching. See you next time.